ask me questions. So when you do that or you want to ask me questions, you can do so on Google Voice. I'm sorry, guys. I think I'm having some connection problems on Instagram, and I might have to go out of Instagram and go back on if it doesn't stop. So I'll keep you posted with that. But you can contact me at my Google Voice number, and I do respond. The number is 765-205-1959. And you can also email me at kidscanseeghosts@gmail.com. So I look forward to hearing from you. I am all over social media as well, and I do respond and answer questions. So I am going to get out of Instagram real quick and try to hop back on. So 1 second, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with the connection. Let me check the Wi-Fi really quickly. It's been a long day. I hope you guys had a good one today. Doing a lot, in my life from working full time and then trying to, raise kids, but also get everything done for this podcast and the website. And I was thinking about, what I was going to talk about on the podcast. I'm sorry, on the website this week, and had decided that I was going to talk about something with the lake. Remember, I told you guys last week that I had an experience with that. And so I'm going to look into doing that. I'm going to try to move this. It is just a really bad connection. It's not raining or anything in my part of Illinois, but it just does not want to connect well. So maybe it will. I'll just leave it alone. All right. So now that you know how to contact me, I'm going to answer at least 2 questions that I've gotten. And this is why I said I want to end up changing my website to more of a general psychology website, answering questions, talking about, mental illness and different strategies, that can be used to help people who are battling, various types of disabilities. And a mental illness can be a disability. So, when I say disability, I'm talking about the umbrella term for mental illness and, special education and things like that. So, someone had asked me today, as a matter of fact, would I be a psychologist again? And I've gotten that question a couple of times. So, I'm going to just tell you if what I think if I would become a psychologist again, and and why I wouldn't. Because the answer is no. Surprisingly, this person was surprised. Other people have been surprised when I say no, um, and it's for good reason. Number one, I actually wanted to be a brain surgeon. So, I know that probably comes as a surprise to some of you who actually know me in person and didn't know that, but I wanted to be a brain surgeon and decided to not go to medical school. And the reason I decided not to even try to go to medical school had everything to do with the fact that, I discovered I didn't like certain body fluids, seeing that kind of stuff, and it was just too much for me. So I thought, you know what, you can't be a brain surgeon or a physician if you don't want to deal with body fluids. So it's time to find something else. But I still like the brain a lot. Different parts of the brain. It was probably one of the easiest things for me to learn while I was in school because I had such a passion for the brain, the anatomy of the brain, and things like that, the spinal cord, things connected. So I wanted to be a brain surgeon. The other thing I wanted to do is to go into marine biology because I actually like biology and did not major in biology. I majored in psychology. And so what I wanted to do was to work with aquatic animals, meaning large animals, so dolphins, sea lions, sea turtles, not necessarily orcas, but marine life, exotic creatures. So yeah, I thought about that. And sometimes when the winter comes in Illinois, I go back to, God, I should have been a marine biologist. I could be living with my family in Florida somewhere, and we could be living in the sunshine, and I can be petting the dolphins. And here it is, like 2 feet of snow. But, I guess God put you in the place that you need to be. And I majored in psychology. And had I not, I would not have met so many wonderful people along my career and my journey in psychology. Why would I not be a psychologist? Well, I am not thrilled with the field. Um, it's a lot of politics and money making that just doesn't have to be there. Uh, it's too hard for you know individuals to get licensed. It's too expensive to get licensed. The money that it takes to actually become successful in this field is too difficult, and it's too much. I don't like that for our field. I think it's a disservice to the field. I think we have too many minorities that are not able to become psychologists and treat people. And I think it is a part of the reason why we have such a deficit of therapists in our country. We have a lot of qualified people who cannot become actual licensed clinicians, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists because of the battle, the gruesome battle of taking state board exams. We're not completely prepared for those when we come out of school. Um, your ability to practice is based upon, passing these tests. And, psychologists, our field, we pride ourselves with testing and assessment, yet we do such a terrible job with it to our own, to our fellow therapists and psychologists. And so I think that is disappointing. It's very disappointing, especially when I see the number of minorities who never get to achieve their goal, yet they have, outstanding student loans and can't get hired at different companies. And so then you hear in the news that, hey, we don't have enough psychologists, we don't have enough school psychologists, we don't have, enough of this, we don't have enough of that, and where are all of the mental health professionals in the school? Well, the ones that are in the schools are drained. Social workers are burned out, they're worn out. Guidance counselors are burned out, worn out. They're not being used to do the work that they have gone to school for because the schools have such a mass exodus of teachers and other employees that they're having to cover different things like lunch duty and bus lines and going into the classroom as substitutes, and they're just not able to, not at all, they're not able to serve in the mental health capacity like they all want to, in the schools. And so it's a trickle down effect, and it starts at the top, and it starts with changing the legislature and ending the restrictions. That some of it is just too strict on what we need to do to practice. And I'm not talking about private practice. I am discussing um, individuals who do not want to go into private practice. So, excuse me. Some of the excuse me. Some of the tests are, biased toward different groups of people. I mean, it's just a sad reality, looking at how the field has changed and watching how, some of this has played out, over the course of 20 something years. So if you look at, there are different articles and whatnot about, where are the therapists, where are the, you know, psychologists, where are the school psychologists, why are the social workers burned out? These are the kinds of things that are happening that the public doesn't necessarily know. And so now, for me, that those are the reasons why I personally would not go into this field again. I absolutely would not. Um, Now, here's something really good about what the not the School of Social Work, but the boards that govern social workers. They are granting social workers their licenses out of school, which is great. If they want to go into private practice, they still have to take an exam. But when they come out of school with a master's degree and they meet all of the qualifications for their state boards, they are licensed social workers. So I'll tell you guys publicly what I have said to some of my colleagues and friends who are social workers. You all are doing it the right way because now you are able to help more people. There's no reason why, the process has to be this hard when there are so many qualified people who can practice. So as you can hear, I've been talking about this now for about 12 minutes. So as you can hear, it's very disappointing for me. Very. Now what I did was I always had a backup plan before I even was accepted to a doctorate program. I was already a school psychologist. So for me, it was if I never passed my state board exam, I'm always a school psychologist. And school psychologists make good money. And so I was never going to be an individual who strictly relied on clinical psychology. The beauty in that is that it's very rare to have a psychologist who is school psych but also clinical psych because it's two different schools of thought. School psych is from the education, not psychology, education. Clinical is, of course, from clinical psych. So you have school of education and then you have department of psychology. So I've been in both, and that's the difference. And some people think that, school psychologists actually are under the guise of psychology. They are not. They are not. They're not even licensed by the same board. Um, licensed psychologists are, a part of. It's totally different. The education or the state board of education, they license their school psychologists. The provincial boards and state boards of each state board in psychology approves and then license clinical psychologists. So it's totally different. So this leads me to answer another question real quick. Somebody asked me if they majored in something in education, could they, if they majored in education at undergrad, went into education for a master's degree, could they possibly get accepted to a doctorate program in psychology? And I went as far as saying probably not, because they're two different schools. They're two different schools. You have to meet the criterion in a doctorate of psychology program in order to get in. So if all of your classes are in education and you did not take any classes in psychology, for example, and a doctorate program requires at least a master's degree in psychology, or even if it's a joint program, if you don't have the prerequisites and also have not taken the classes that push you in line to get into a doctorate program, they're not going to accept you. So, for example, my bachelor's degree is in psychology. Then I went and got a master's in school psych. So there you go, right? And I went into my doctorate program as a school psychologist, but I had the psychology background from undergrad. And then I took, for my master's degree, I believe I took general psych and school psych and did all the testing and the internships for school psych, right? And so all of that, plus the other criterion, I met those. And my advisor and I had such a good relationship. I was accepted. Um, and I remember he said that he liked the fact that I had the school psych background. So it is case by case and it depends, but I guarantee that if you come from the school of education and you don't have a psychology background at all, then more than likely a doctorate program is going to reject you. And it's really hard to get into those programs. So if you do want to become a clinical psychologist, go ahead and take your psychology courses. Start talking to people like me that can help you and steer you in the right direction. Um, and there are other branches of psychology that people don't consider. For example, you have research psychologists or experimental psychologists. You have social psychologists. Social psychologists are actually really cool. They come up with all of the different patterns that you see and choices that people make in different groups. For example, bystander apathy. Social psychologists who are like, yeah, if you're around a whole bunch of people and you get hurt, more than likely they're going to walk on over you. Versus if there's one person with you when you get hurt, they will probably help you. Those are social psychologists. Then you have educational psychologists, psychologists who go into education and they teach at a university or a college or a community college, and they deal with education. Some of them really research, things in special education and stuff like that. You can also go into school psychology, but again, school psychology is education. Don't forget that. As far as a doctorate in psychology, you can also get a doctorate in school psychology. You can do that as well. And then you have industrial organizational psychologists. So we call them IO psychologists, which I just, to explain what they do to laymen outside of the field, I just say they're business psychologists. They go into, various businesses and they look at, different analyses to keep, businesses going, and training and needs analyses and, you know, um, economics and things like that in businesses. So, as you can just hear, there are a lot of different things that you can do in psychology, but a lot of people focus on clinical because they don't do their homework to find out, other things that you can do in the field. So, before you go into it, make sure you take your time to research which branch of psychology that you want to go into. Now, my program had an IO, industrial organizational, so IO program, and I was interested in it, but I decided to go down the clinical path. But I thought about changing the IO many times, and I was thinking about that, when this person asked me, because I said I really should have done IO. I was like, my sister is the smart one because she actually has a master's in more of the business side of psychology, and she's the one in the corporations, making the money. And I was like, my sister was actually the smart one, right? Here I am, you know, um, at the doctor level, and I'm like, oh God, I would never do clinical again. And she's like, I love what I do. So who was the smart one? Probably my sister, right? So yeah. All right, so those are a couple of questions. Hopefully that helps you out. If you've asked me, I know there are a lot more, so we'll get to them, or I will get to them after we get through October Ghost Stories. So let's get it. Let's get it. Last week I was thinking about what blog I was actually going to write about. And God, I was thinking and thinking and thinking. Look at my Halloween socks. I like them. I'm really festive. So I'll buy like all kinds of little stuff, for the holidays. So I bought my kids, and Old Navy had these. So I bought these from Old Navy. Me and my kids like all these thick socks. So I'm getting ready to get in the mood and talk about witches. Have you ever met a witch? It's pretty darn interesting. Let's talk about it. So in my blog, when I started thinking about what I was going to write, I wanted to keep the theme of Halloween. And so when I was thinking about what I was going to write about, I started going through my mind about, interesting people that I have met um, more recently. And recent is within the past 5 to 6 years. So I actually had the opportunity to do something that I had never done in my life. I had never talked to anybody who practices paganism and voodoo. And that's what we're going to talk about today because that was very new to me. So, what I would like to do is let's talk about the Witch 2. I'm not looking at my blog. I believe I talked about Witch 2 first because that one took a dark path. And so I want to get the one that took the dark path out of the way first. So, just in my journey of meeting people, now to know me, really know me, is to understand that I'm really friendly. Like I talk to a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people on purpose because I like people. And so if you think about Miss, hey, you know, I could be on the bus, the train, wherever, all the way in Hawaii, and meet some interesting people that have a story that I want to talk about their talk with them about their story. So I actually met Witch 2, and we spent a lot of time talking. And I found out we had a lot of things in common. And one of the things that we had in common was that we had the same birthday. We had the same birthday. When I meet somebody that had, gosh, my husband has the same birthday I do. So all three of us had the same birthday. So when I meet somebody and we have the same birthday, it's always interesting to me. And so we talked about that, kind of bonded that way. And as time went on, I had learned that this person was doing a couple of things where I was kind of like, if you can see me in a video, kind of like, what, wait, what? Time passed on, I found out that this person actually called themselves a witch, which was new to me. And I had never met anyone who called themselves a witch and was actually practicing different things. I'll get into that in a minute. So when I was talking with this person, there were things that were coming up that kind of made me go, huh? For example, one of the rituals, and I'm going to say ritual because that's what it was, rituals that this person would practice would be to talk to ancestors, for example, conjuring up ancestors. And so for me, and I'm also kind of a jokester, so for me, it's like, wait, what are you conjuring up? And how do you know you're talking to your ancestors? What's wrong with you? you know, who are you? How do you know who you are? You talking? I know it's my ancestors. I'm like, okay, tell me about it. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. And it was more of a, if you can imagine a shrine, candles, photos, ancestors, right? And kneeling, this is what got me. Amongst a lot of things, this is what got me. Now, I can't judge people. You don't judge people. But I have to say, this one got me. Kneeling in front of it and praying. And I was like, who are you? Who are you praying to when you do it? Like, we would just like really talk and debate about stuff like this. And it was, I'm praying to my ancestors. And I'm like, how do you know you're praying to your ancestors? How do you know you're not praying to demon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and all of them from like 1932, right? And this person would say, no, I'm praying to my ancestors. I channel them and pray to them. And I'm like, how the heck do you know you're channeling your ancestors? And if they were your ancestors and they love you, would they really come to you when you're channeling them? Okay, so I was confused, as you can see. But that's what this person did with candles and stuff like that. This person was also into witchcraft. I don't even know if I wrote that in a blog, but it was witchcraft. And it was more of a um, this person believed in magic. And I said, why? So understand, I wasn't being smart with that person. It was just kind of like, well, why are you into witchcraft? I don't get it. Explain it. And that's when I found out that it had been passed down from the ancestors that this person was praying to. And so then I said, what is this called? What are you doing? What is all this stuff called? And it was voodoo, according to this person. And voodoo has been taught and passed down for generations in my family. And dark, you have to, it was more of a, so you have to know how to rid yourselves of dark entities, but draw upon them for strength. And so I was kind of like, yeah, I won't be drawing up anything dark for strength, just so you know. But that's what this person practiced. And so I was like, is voodoo witchcraft? Because I don't know, you know. And she said, well, yeah, yeah. So my mind went to Eve's Bayou, to be honest with you, because if you haven't seen Eve's Bayou, that's what it reminded me of. Family came from the bayou, this person said. And so for years, they've been practicing voodoo, right? The dark side of voodoo. So you know what, after a while of listening to this for a long time from this person, I finally said, do you believe in God? Because I wanted to know. Yes. Okay, well then why are you praying to your ancestors? Oh no, I pray to God too, but I just pray to my ancestors. So you see, for me, it was a little bit confusing. All right, so the voodoo part was in my brain sticking needles and stuff into dolls and cursing folks. And so I was just joking, right? Because I could joke with this person at that point. She's like, well, yeah. And I'm going, is that what you do? Like, yeah, we've done that. That's what we do. And I'm like, so you curse people? She's like, yeah. So I'm like, well, are we friends? Just joking. She said, of course, but this is just what we do. It's just, our culture, and, we believe in this stuff. And I actually practice different spells and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, this is really a thing, right? And she's like, well, yeah, because these are the things that I grew up with. This is what I was taught. And I thought, wow, that's totally different than the way that I was raised and the way that, my friends were raised when we were, growing up together. And this is different. So this witch, if you can imagine, like I can see it with my eyes closed, also believe that certain things would ward off evil spirits. So, for example, burning sage all over the home, salt. This lady told me that she put salt like all around her house. And I was thinking, dang, I hope you don't get ants. No, I'm just playing. No, I did probably say that though. Man, I would not put salt all over my house just because I don't like bugs, but that's a different story. But she said she put salt everywhere to keep. She told me I should put salt outside to keep evil spirits outside. Um, Salt lamps, those things. Salt, she said, will draw out negative energy or draw out negative energy. Um, Different things like garlic. It was a lot of stuff. And I was like, whoa. So, like, are you trying to not have vampires around? And she's like, no, these are things that demons don't deal with. So I was thinking, I had all kinds of thoughts, I remember. And I would say stuff like, wait a minute, but aren't demons entities? Can't they just like cross over the salt? I mean, can't they just float or something just because, they're demons? And she's cracking up. She's like, no, they won't come beyond this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how do you know? Right? How do you know? And so the more that I worked with this person or this woman, a witch is a female, so this woman, I realized that this was actually a woman who could see ghosts. And I'll tell you how I discovered it. Because I asked too many dang questions about the paranormal activity that she was preventing herself from or protecting herself from, period. And so this lady, I don't want to keep, I feel like if I call her a witch, that's like bad, but that's what she considered herself, a witch. So sometimes I say lady, but I'm talking about the same person. So she felt a connection to me. She felt a connection to me and my energy, she said. And so she talked about how I should do some of the things that she does because it will protect me too. And I said, absolutely not. No, I will not be praying to my dead ancestors. Same thing, you know what I mean? And I will not be praying to some dark stuff. And the only thing I need to protect myself is a prayer, God, and a Bible, right? And I believe in that. And she's like, no, you need more than that. You need this, you need that. So here, I'm going to buy you this stuff. So she wound up buying me some stuff. And I was just like, yeah, I don't need that stuff, but okay. And she's like, yes, you do. She was adamant. So I always say, when people do nice things for you, take it, right? Within reason. Now, if she had brought me some dang dolls with pins in them, I would say you take them little demons back. But she got me some things. Um, some of it was actually really, really pretty, you know. And as long as it didn't have anything, you know, negative or that I perceived to be demonic to it, it's all right, you know, to take it. And this was not a client of mine, so it was definitely okay. And so I did, and she explained things to me and was trying to get me to say some stuff um, that she understood with magic to protect myself and my family, and I refused. And she respected that. So for this one, it was so dark to me. Um, and it was somewhat scary because if you think about dark magic, that's actually what she was practicing, dark magic. And I've talked about dark magic on my blog before. And anybody that practices dark magic, and I made this clear with her, is dealing with something that they don't understand and conjuring up these things. And I say this on this blog all the time. It's not a positive thing. Dark is darkness. It is not your friend. Don't deal with demons. And that's the message that I had shared with this witch who was actually dealing in black magic and thought that it was okay because she had complete control of it. And to be honest with you, she did not, because some things happened later on. And I have to tell you, like, if I ever see her again, I would tell her it's because you diving into dark stuff and you don't know what you're doing and you shouldn't be diving into it anyway. Like some negative, really bad stuff happened to her toward the end. And, you know, I'm like, you got to stop. And I told her this before to dealing with that stuff because demons want to destroy you. And I will say that until the day that I go home to God. Demons will destroy you. They are not your friend. They are not your friend. Leave them alone. But she wouldn't. She wouldn't. She continued to do voodoo. And wouldn't break from it. I can still see her telling me, Dr. Lisa. That's how she would say my name. Everything is okay. This is what we need to do. You need to pray to your ancestors. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I was like, Just shook my head like, child, we have work to do. And then some things happened, and then I couldn't. And then I couldn't. But that was the first time that I had ever, and I don't know what it was during this time period because I had never encountered a witch. I may have, they just didn't tell me. I don't know. But someone who actually identified as a witch, who was actually practicing black magic, this was my first experience. So I don't know what it was during that time period, but I wound up meeting another witch and who could see ghosts. They could both see ghosts, and people in their families could see ghosts. Because which one could see ghosts? Which one's family members, the females, could see ghosts? And I was just blown away. I was like, why is this happening? Why am I meeting these wonderful people who practice magic? But anyway, witch number one was a little more calm for me because witch number one was not practicing black magic and knew all about it, but refused to practice it. Witch one practiced paganism. She was a pagan witch. I'm proud of it. And really taught me some things about being a pagan witch. The type of pagan witch she was, and her family, and they all practice magic, all of them, she told me. But the kind of pagan witch she was is that she could definitely see ghosts. She would tell me about them. But she said, I make the darkness go away. And when we do magic, we don't do it to the point where we try to change things, if you will. So we don't try to, unlike Witch 2, curse people and stuff like that. So there were limitations, and um, Witch 1 actually did believe in praying to God and things like that. And would tell me all the time about seeing ghosts. I'm pausing a little bit because I'm recalling in my head, like I can see our conversations. So I'm pausing a little bit because I'm a visual person and I can visualize the conversations and the things that I was taught by both of them, but in particular, which one. So, which one was more, which one, honestly, her aura seemed dark to me. And I don't know if you all know what that means. So I'll try to explain it to you. Have you ever met someone and they just seem dark, like their facial expressions, their eyes, their skin color, um, demeanor, not very nice, but nice enough, kind of like that. So she seemed kind of dark to me, but not like which number. Which number two was practicing dark stuff. It's just different. But which one wasn't necessarily practicing dark stuff, but she just seemed kind of dark. Just looking at her, but nice as pie, just nice. And was telling me that her entire family practiced witchcraft and paganism for many, many years. So a lot of that was passed down from her family. And so she believed, and her family, all her family, including the men in her family, which I never heard about before, but in this case, the men in her family, they all practiced paganism. And so I had to go home and read about that because I didn't know. I had no reason to know about it because I don't necessarily believe in witchcraft or even entertain practicing or none of that stuff. I don't dive into anything dark. There is a darkness to it. It depends on how you work it, according to her. And what she did was she continued to pray to God. She continued to believe in God, but she still practiced witchcraft, and her family would rid themselves of dark entities, but also know how to bring them to fruition, if that makes sense. And it was like, wow. with this, with which one, because she was very calm and she was very much like, oh, I'll have to tell you more about it. I actually do really like, practicing witchcraft. And so she needed to trust me. She really needed to trust me before she would actually talk to me and teach me things. So I can remember her kind of checking me out, like, can I trust her or not? Can I talk to her or not? And she would say stuff like, I didn't think you were the type of person that I couldn't talk to. You seem like the kind of person that I could talk to. So it was interesting because she was checking me out and I knew it, but I just kind of played it cool. And then I found out that she was a witch or a pagan and practiced witchcraft. And we just happened to talk one day, and from then on we talked almost every single day, and it was really good to learn from her and have some conversations with her. Just a normal functioning person. This had nothing to do with mental health at all. This was just almost like a religious practice that this woman had and was proud of it. No different than Christians are proud, or those who practice, Islam are proud. This person was proud of being a pagan witch and, wanted to tell me all about the practices. Now, where it gets dark for me collectively with both of them is that they do have similarities when it comes to magic. They had similarities when it came down to magic, and they had similarities with even going into, how do I explain it? Even going into the type of magic they were doing got to the point where it was dark. Now, which one was not practicing black magic, but some of it to me was dark, like trying to, she would, trying to think of how she would explain it. She would try to get rid of dark spirits in her family by using magic. And that to me is another form of darkness, right? Because in my mind, based upon what I've learned from all of these kids who can see ghosts when they do, um, talk to God's angels or pray to God through God's angels, or when they would see dark spirits, they needed to understand how to, control those things. Excuse me, and they controlled it when I would teach them how to pray, right? And so instead of doing that, both of these individuals, although which one would pray, there wasn't a prayer to get rid of dark entities. It was more of, you better just tell it to go away, and you better use sage, or you better use, salt, or you better use XYZ instead of let me pray. So for me, that was when it became kind of dark. So I was just like, wow, it's a lot to learn, from both of them. But those were my experiences. And, you know, what was even more interesting is that both of them were actually drawn to me in some form or fashion. And although they both possessed, according to them, the skills to use magic and to rid themselves of, dark entities if they wanted to, right? If they wanted to, they both saw ghosts. I can tell you a specific story that which one told me. Which one used to see a ghost near us when we would talk, and also in different stores. And now that I think about it, there were kids that actually told me about the same little spirit in the same location. So when I started talking to which one, it wasn't because, let me think. When I started talking to which, after I started talking to which one told me about this little spirit, and the same one that the kids saw, and did not know anything about my blog or podcast, right? And so when which two as well, but in particular, which one found out, because we were talking about it, that I write about this stuff based upon my psychological experiences with kids, right? Just at random kids who could see ghosts. Not anything planned, not anything that I asked, none of that. Total innocence. Clients and community mental health centers over the years is where I've gotten these stories, right? After I told which one that, she looked at me and she said, "So you understand?" I was like, "To a certain degree, because I don't understand witchcraft, because I'm not a witch, but I just met two, you and another person. So that's new to me. So I don't know anything about witchcraft. I have to go read and understand what you guys do in order to write about it." And that's what I did, either this year or the fall of last year. One or the other. I don't know. I'm 74 blogs in. But I said, I don't know anything about that life at all. You guys are teaching me this stuff. And they did. They taught me a whole lot. I didn't want to write a whole lot of detail because I don't ever want to give these two away at all in my blogs. But it was pretty interesting. And, I have to tell you, the most fascinating part about it all for me was that this had never happened to me before. So I've worked with kids who could see ghosts. I met them. I meet them all the time. Met and meet them, right? Most recently, I have not met any kids who could see ghosts, so this is probably another break for some reason, but they'll be back, and I'll write more stories about them. Meeting witches was definitely new for me. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to share this in my blog. Kids can see ghosts. Can you? My blog is lisaligonschambers.com. So I don't know everything and never profess to know everything, especially about the world of the paranormal. I'm definitely not an expert. I specialize in behavior disorders, not the paranormal, and I definitely don't specialize in anything pertaining to witches. But what I will say is that there is some connection. There is some connection between all of these stories, obviously, and their ability to see ghosts, but something in the spiritual realm is also connected to all of these individuals, which makes it fascinating for me. And they are um, wonderful people, good relationships with them. And I can't prove, even with kids, that if I ran a research study right now and said, "Hey guys, you know, thank you for helping me to grow this blog. I'm going to go ahead and do some research on kids that can see ghosts. So if your child can see ghosts, contact me. We're going to run some research. I want to try to see, whatever my hypothesis would be." Hypothesis is my question, right? I still wouldn't be able to prove it scientifically because I can never capture a picture of a ghost. The world wouldn't even believe it was ghosts. The only people that would believe me are other people that can see ghosts, which there have been numerous people over the past year and a half to contact me to say, "Hey, my kids can do this," you know, or "My husband can see ghosts," or "Last night I saw a ghost. What do I do?" Or "I feel like something is following me," or "I turned around and I saw God's angel and I know it's God's angel because of this," or "I see dark angels." This has happened to me for years and years and years and years, right? But I still can't prove it scientifically. And I may never be able to prove it scientifically. The brain is a very fascinating organ. And it does things that we have no idea it can do in science. So there's no way I can prove this. However, I will say, when I do meet individuals like these two women, outside of their witchcraft and everything else that they do within their religions, They both can see ghosts. And I'm always fascinated by people who say they see ghosts, and I believe them. You all have a good night. I will see you next week, and we will continue October ghost stories throughout the month of October. Next week, I am hoping to talk about hauntings that involve lakes. It'll make sense to you next week. See you soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye bye.